Hey everybody, hope you're having a great day today. We're going to do a bit of a deep dive. I know Jason, mathematics make our heads a little bit crazy. I know you're
Makes
shaking your
mine
head.
really crazy.
So
Absolutely.
here's what we've discovered. We have a friend, Jimmy Blanchette. He was on our show a couple weeks ago talking about human initiated contact. He's then taken some of these contact videos, the craft that appeared, the shapes, the orientations that they seem to present, and he's run mathematical calculations on them. And there's some crazy base units of quantum math that they seem to be displaying. They seem to be giving us kind of the base keys to calculating everything in the universe. And he had a few quick coincidences, and then he thought, well, let's apply this to really big equations like the mass of the universe, the volume of the sun, things like that. And he wound up getting the same answers that these lifelong physicists have got using 20 chalkboards worth of equations. He's taken some basic quantum units and applied it to things you wouldn't believe. And at first I was skeptical. The more you listen and the more you dig in and you really understand that, maybe ET has been communicating with us all along. We're just missing some of what they're saying. And when you can put it into a mathematical calculation that is repeatable, provable, demonstrable, scientists can take it and run the math left and right and see if he's nuts or not. But it seems to be that there are a few basic numbers that when combined, multiplied, divided, whatever, you can literally calculate all of these big cosmic numbers that we've been trying to figure out. So we're going to do our best to keep it digestible. If you're a scientist or mathematician, you're going to love it. If you're an average Joe that likes the idea of cool, hidden math encrypted from the ancients and quantum physics now proving to, that is actually the case, then I think you're really going to like the show. So we'll be back in just a minute with our friend, Mr. Jimmy Blanchette.
Part
right
two.
Here. Part deux, since you're French.
Yeah.
I'm out Frenched again, Jay, but here we go. We'll be right back with Jimmy Blanchette on UAP Studies Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of UAP Studies Podcast. My name is Louis Borges. Joining me as always, my best buddy, Jason Gilmet. How you doing?
Oh, it just warms my heart when you say your best buddy. You know,
it's a warm, fuzzy day. This is our digital living room on a weekday or a Sunday, or I guess whenever you listen to the episode, really, right? We're good for all times a year. And, it's exciting to do these shows. And we try to hit it from every angle possible. And today we have our friend Jimmy Blanchette back again to do kind of a part two to our first episode. So our first episode, we talked first. Welcome, Jimmy. Welcome to our show.
Glad to be on your show. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was super cool having you a couple weeks ago. We chatted about the golden ratio and also about human initiated contact. Basically, rather than meditating, kind of like CE5 to make things appear, you're broadcasting radio waves with an intention and a message and inviting these things to manifest and to appear. And today, we're going to look at some of the footage that has been captured during these radio blasts and moon bounce technology, showering the universe with happy thoughts from planet Earth here. And some of these things manifest and show up. And there is potentially encrypted math, both in the shapes of these craft, the light flashes, almost like a Morse code, sending more information than just how they appear. Some of these craft even change shape. In fact, we're going to show some video today. It's going to be kind of a unique show. We're going to do some slides and some video. We'll make it as descriptive as possible for our Spotify audience. But for anybody who's able to go to YouTube and wants to see the slides, Jimmy's done a great job putting together graphics to basically take a very complicated idea, and we're going to break it down and show you that it's not so crazy. And maybe the universe has been giving us the answers we need all along. And it's going to be an exciting...
Yeah, and I was going to say, Louis, you're more mathematically inclined. So is Jimmy. I am not. So for the listener and the viewer that is watching this, and you're like, look, I don't get along with math. I'm in the same boat, but I think you guys do a good job of breaking it down for us, especially Jimmy's math there. He's going to explain to us exactly how it works. And like I said, I'm going to be in there. I'm in the same boat. So hang in there if you don't know everything that's being mentioned, we got Louis and Jimmy to help us out. So.
We're going to break it down and make it digestible. And keep in mind, too, if we're trying to find very advanced new ways of thinking about the universe or finding physics that don't technically exist yet, if we're using the old guard and the old meter stick, so to speak, we're never going to get there. If you're measuring it incorrectly, you're going to measure it a million times incorrectly. So there needs to be kind of a paradigm shift. We need to bring many bright thinkers into this, and some of these formulas that Jimmy, has come up with, it's amazing. It's essentially a new physics that even people like myself and Jason can understand. So we hope everybody comes at this with an open mind. I had to kind of look at it a couple times myself before it started to make sense. But I mean, we're going to compare it to the Great Pyramids of Giza, Rendlesham Forest, ley lines, UFO videos that have similar ratios and mathematics that all seem to match. And 1 or 2 times is a coincidence. When you have things matching at 3 and 4 and 5 decimal places with 99% accuracy, it's hard to refute. So very impressive stuff. It's going to be a lot of fun today. Jimmy, I'm going to hand you the keys to the Ferrari, brother. You can officially drive and introduce us to this, what do you call it? Harmonics? Mathematical harmonics?
Geometric harmonics.
Geometric harmonics. Okay. We're going to understand the universe more than ever in the next hour and change. So
excellent. So let me share the screen. So we have a lot of material to go through. I will try to be as descriptive and clear as possible, but it's going to go pretty fast. So the folks can always go back to the presentation after and we watch if needed. I will also, Luis and Jason, share the link of the full videos, because we're just going to watch a short video today because obviously, there's an audience that's just on audio, but I will share the links of the more videos that you can maybe link up to the,
sure.
the interview.
Yeah, we'll put them in the description.
Excellent. Okay. So, the title today, it says it all, right? Essentially that the non-human intelligence reveal the keys of the universe, yielding a new physics capable of transforming human civilizations. And so this is really the main theme of the presentation here, that essentially that the intelligence has been based on what we're going to see today and so much more that's out there. We have limited time today, that the intelligence has been communicating the keys of the universe all along, right in our face, and patiently waiting that we made the connections and decode this information and turn it into a new physics, into something that's going to be helpful for humanity and free humanity from its current dependencies and limitations right now. So let's go through it. First slide I have here is a key aspect that we're going to talk throughout the presentation. That's why I want to spend a minute on that. The golden ratio, I mean, I'm sure many people have heard about the golden ratio and fractality. That's a very key principle that's we're going to be covering today. And the golden ratio really is a driving force in nature. It's really a natural thing. It's something natural. It's a driving force in nature. There's a lot of math involved behind this, and beautiful math. We're not going to go through the details of that. But if you just look at the human proportion, if you look at the human body, for instance, you will find that most of it, all aspect of our human body is ratioed based on a golden ratio. Golden ratio is 1 to 1.618, right? That's the ratio, the magical golden number, if you will, that drives everything in nature. That's the same, the same golden ratio principle that drives the dynamics of the hurricanes, for instance, with the golden spiral that we see here on the screen. This principle drives even the formation of galaxies, the spiral galaxies we see also in the center of the screen. It's involved in everything really in nature that involves growth and fractality. That mathematical, that nature principle is one of the key drivers we're going to be talking today about, and also a key principle that's been communicated to us through various sightings. So we're going to go through in the next sections. I'm going to present evidence of that, right? What are the evidence that the intelligence has been communicating these keys of the universe essentially through sightings, through location of sighting and things like that. So that's what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking also at ancient sacred sites that encodes that information as well. That information is everywhere, and we're going to go through that in detail. The first thing I would like to go through is a video here of a good friend of mine. She's an experiencer. She lives in the Netherlands, and she was generous enough to share this very personal experience. And I say personal because you know, this is really people who do human-initiated contact. There are very personal aspect to this, and she was generous enough to share her information. And she asked me to look into an amazing sighting experience that she had, and that she had actually requested. She had requested for bilateral contact, asking for a V-shape manifestation and other geometric forms. And per her request, the intelligence has acted upon it. And she used a night vision camera, the same night vision camera that I use here. It's a Luna Optics. And it's very, very touchy, by the way, to film with that, because the field of view is very narrow, it's very zoomed in. But she was guided and instructed essentially to hold the camera in a certain direction, and at a precise moment, she was instructed to press the record button. And what you will see in the video is what happened next, which was essentially the acting of the intelligence upon her request. So a very, very amazing video. So let me play it right now.
This is a UAP Studies podcast first. We're going to show an actual UAP video that we believe to be legit. I'm the biggest, I'm the biggest skeptic on all videos. I think they're all fake. I don't think I've ever genuinely seen a real one. I think this is a real one.
So hold on a second here. I will take the time to, can you see it on the screen?
Yep.
All right.
And Jimmy, just to be clear, this is her request that something happened this particular night at this particular location.
That the sighting was a specific request. The timing was not specified, if I recall well, but she asked specifically for a V-shaped formation, and
the location.
And that they produce various geometric forms, and what we'll see in the video is exactly what happened here. So let me play it, and hopefully I can put it full screen. Here we go. So what you will see here when I start the video, it's going to play twice in a row. So we're going to let it play. The first time I will not describe what happens. The second time I'm going to describe a bit what was seeing. And what you will see, essentially, the video starts recording at the moment that she was instructed to press record, right? So this is when the video, the sighting take place. So here we go.
Now that's one craft, or that's a formation of craft?
That's a formation of 5 objects that are executing different forms and shapes, as we can see here.
Yeah. That's amazing. And this is in 2016, October 5th, 2016 in Holland, right?
That's correct. So I'm going to play it again one more time, and we'll comment a bit. So at the beginning, you will see like the shape looks like an inverted pyramid. With the tip going downward, if you will, like this, very stable. And then it morphs into a V shape, contracts back, and then forms something else that we're going to see in the slide in a minute.
And what's amazing is that they're all moving about, crisscrossing each other, and they're not bumping into each other at all.
Yeah. And they're probably going crazy fast too, if they're viewed from any distance, right? I mean, to do that and to play games, I don't think would be a smart idea unless you were trying to say something, right? That's amazing.
Yeah, it's truly one of the most remarkable footage I've seen. And again, I thank Linda for this. These are very personal experiences. And, you know, she asked me to look recently, I think it was back in November, if I recall, of 2022. She asked me to look and say, hey, you know, can you find information? Can you decode? Because she had seen some of my interviews. And she asked, you know, if I could find information in this amazing footage. And so I started looking into it, and we're going to see in a second here what came out of this analysis. And she will be a great person to interview, by the way. She's a very, you know, wonderful experiencer. There's a wonderful community out there, I'm telling you, of experiencer who make real contact with the intelligence in a very profound way. And, you know, this is real. This is real, folks. This is really happening.
So you took this video and you did some mathematical work and angles and all that stuff to see if there's any information encoded in this sighting.
Exactly. So the first thing I looked at was this. I took a screenshot of this, what you see on the screen here, when the V shape is extended or stretched, if you will. And I did an analysis of the angle of that V shape. And so I had a nice possibility to make a nice baseline at the bottom. We see, and for the folks out there who are just audio, we see the V shape essentially. There's a baseline at the bottom made of 3 objects and 2 more objects going in an angle, if you will, like a V, a very wide angle. And when I calibrated it, to essentially have this angle on the right side being between the 2 objects, because they were not perfectly aligned. So just right in between where we have the best average, if you will. And which angle are we seeing? 144 degrees. I mean, I was absolutely floored when I saw that. This angle of that V shape in the stretch configuration is 144 degrees.
And that's one of these fundamental units we're talking about today. The golden ratio, harmonic 144, and later we'll see 432. These are our building blocks of the math that we're going to use, and everything seems to come back to these few simple numbers, oddly enough.
Exactly, 144, golden ratio 432, and I have a slide. We'll see it, and thank you, Luis. And so the other aspect of the footage I looked at was this configuration here. So clearly there was a geometrical shape there that we could recognize, and upon zooming on it and looking at it and flipping it upward, clearly what we're looking at is a tetrahedron shape, a tetrahedron with an inscribed sphere inside, right? So we see it to the right side here, the 4 objects creating the tetrahedron and the inscribed sphere. And I recognized it right away also because amazingly, and that's the other aspect that totally blew my mind, is that I had been working on that very shape, a tetrahedron. If you go up on the upper right side of the screen, we see a tetrahedron with an inscribed sphere. There's a sphere inside the tetrahedron for those who don't see the screen. And I had been working on quantum simulations using exactly that shape. And what that reveals, the tetrahedron itself is made of, if we add up all the angles of a tetrahedron, they all add up to, it adds up to 720 degrees. And in terms of harmonic, there are 60 minutes of arc per degree. So we end up with 43,200. And 43,200 not only is the scaling factor of the Great Pyramid of Giza, but it represents essentially harmonic 432, because in harmonic mathematics, we can ignore the zeros, or we can slide the decimal left or right for those who are into the math. So it's equivalent to harmonic 432. So that tetrahedron with the inscribed sphere was revealing that. And and what's also amazing when we do this quantum simulation, if we go back to this tetrahedron on the upper right side of the screen, if we essentially fill up the volume of this tetrahedron, and somebody can just imagine, filling this, tetrahedron with a liquid, energy liquid, if you will. But if we fill it with a volume equivalent to the reciprocal of the golden ratio, essentially it's taking the totality of the universe represented by the number 1, right? The oneness, you can kind of represent that. And we create a division in this oneness, a division in this totality of this universe we live in. And we fractalize all this universe using the golden ratio principle. What we end up with is a tetrahedron, in this case, where the inscribed sphere inside, the volume of that inscribed sphere inside will match 432 squared, which match essentially the speed of light in miles per second. I mean, this is amazing.
So I'm going to pause you there for a sec, Jimmy. So a tetrahedron is a pyramid by all comparisons, right? So yep. You're talking about a pyramid that when you calculate the volume or how much stuff you could fit in that, liquid or whatever, you're getting the factor 432. And if there was a sphere inside of this pyramid, and the measurement of that would be 432 squared, which is 186,624. That is the exact speed of light in meters per second.
Yeah, it matches it at 99.9%. Essentially,
That's
the speed
insane.
of light miles per second is 186.282.
So the pyramid, I mean, maybe I'm going on a limb, but yep. For all the people that love to talk about the pyramid, perhaps they were trying to show that if you just do the math on this building, get the volume, square that, you will have speed of light travel. We're giving you the answer to what that is by the very shape of the pyramid or tetrahedron.
Yeah, the geometric, exactly. So this was fascinating to me, clearly not an accident. I mean, it's very clear And this, at the time also, this was a powerful confirmation to me personally that I was working on the right stuff, because I've been working on this, essentially combining these geometric harmonics to platonic solids really gives birth to entire new physics. And we'll see that in a few slides here. So let's move on. The other thing that, well, you know, I should have shown the slide here, but essentially this what we call tetrahedron, which are like, as we said, pyramid, but 3 sides only, right? It's like a tetrahedron. Is also what creates the 64 tetrahedron grid. So you can imagine you take 64 of these triangles, if you will, of this tetrahedron in a certain configuration, and that essentially, if you cast a light from the top of this structure of this 64 tetrahedron grid, you produce actually the flower of life in 2 dimensions. That's what we see here on the left side. The flower of life is a 2-dimensional representation of something that's 3-dimensional, right? We live in a 3-dimensional world, not in a 2. And that 3-dimensional structure is this 64 tetrahedron grid, which really is the engine of creation, really, if we could represent it this way. And we see again to the right side the tetrahedron and the volumes we talked about earlier. So let's move on to the next slide. So the third aspect I looked at into this sighting was comparing the V-shape of these sighting, the V-shape when the V-shape is essentially the objects are stretched, if you will, versus later on in the video, for those who can watch the video, we'll see the V-shape contracts essentially on itself. So I compared these 2 configuration here, and I took measurements of the base or the length of that V-shape, right? And to compare, you know, what was relatively speaking, the ratio of this. And what I found out is that when we ratio the stretch configuration over the contracted configuration of that V-shape, we obtain the golden ratio squared. I mean, exactly. I mean, a very, very high accuracy, which was absolutely remarkable to me. And that's what we see here in the calculation. And we see in the picture that the ratio gives the golden ratio squared. So essentially what we end up with, you know, through this sighting, clearly what was revealed, at least I'm not saying that's the only thing that was revealed, but certainly what was revealed, we see that the V-shape angle itself was revealing the harmonic 144. We got, you know, through the 144 degrees of that angle. The shrinked or contracted V-shape configuration ratioed over the stretch configuration is revealing the golden ratio, which we talked about, which is one of the key driving principles in the universe. And to the right side, we see that the tetrahedron with the inscribed sphere is revealing harmonic 432. And just this happens to be the formula that I introduced a few months ago for the first time back in August, which I call the formula for the light encoded reality matrix, where essentially we have the number 1, which represents the totality of our holographic universe, equals harmonic 144 times the golden ratio principle times harmonic 432. Very simple. These 3 ingredients, or the 3 ingredients of creation, which drives the holographic universe we live in. And that's what I have attempted to demonstrate in the past, and we have a few slides again today that we're going to go through to demonstrate that. And this is what was revealed through the sighting. We see here more clearly what I call the universal formula for the light encoded reality matrix, essentially where we live in the matrix reality, which is made of light energy. It's encoded with pure light. And we know, I mean, and one of the analogy I could give you, if you go watch a movie on a very, very large screen, whether a IMAX or whatever, a 3D movie even, right? What we're looking at really is a projection made of light, right? What we see is light energy, right? Different colors. You can represent essentially the 3 primary color. We know the blue, yellow, and red as being the 3 primary color, which could essentially represent these harmonics, right? With the combination of these light colors, we can recreate the entire spectrum of the visual that we can see. So essentially, these light waves that we're receiving while watching a movie gives us a sense of reality, right? It's creating a false reality, if you will, but right, it seems real. And especially if you watch a 3D movie, you will think that you're embedded in it, right? So essentially our body works a bit the same way. Our body will be the television screen, if you will, right, that interpret this light energy, these light harmonics, and creates a semblance of reality, if you will. And that's what that formula described.
And also consciousness, not just the reality of what we see, how our bodies filter information via light, like you said. if this mathematics is correct, it's essentially proving that there is consciousness and that this is how it would arise and this is how it is calculated. And this would be the base. And again, people that are diving into consciousness talk are saying that if it is the main fuel of everything, this is essentially the base chain formula for calculating anything in the universe or anything we can perceive or anything that is real.
So consciousness could be calculated.
Essentially, yeah, this is the formula. 1 equals the holographic universe, which is also could be called the consciousness field. Yes. This is a mathematical, it's not 38 chalkboards long. It's 3 number sets.
Yeah, it's very simple. And you're exactly right. That's the key point I wanted to make here. The number 1 represents the consciousness field, which is a singularity, right? Which connects everything. When we say everything is 1, we are 1, that's what it is. And from there, the physical reality we perceive is created through these harmonics and golden ratio. Which is essentially a bit an illusion, if you will, right? And physics proves that. But yeah, so this is what it is. And why is it important? Well, once we understand the building blocks of creation, how universe really operates, we're really tapping into the possible development of these technologies, right? Healing technologies based on these frequencies. We know, for instance, and I have slides about it. I'm not going to present that today. We don't have time, but which demonstrates, for instance, that the wave, the brain waves that we have, right? Well, if you take the alpha brain wave, which are between 7 and 8 hertz, take 7.83 hertz, for instance, right? The brain wave, which happens to match the Schumann resonance, right? 7.83. So there's a connection.
The Schumann resonance is the Earth's natural vibration, correct?
Correct. That's the heartbeat of Earth, essentially. Yes, okay. This is the frequency at which planet Earth vibrates. So that frequency of the Schumann resonance is totally in the range of our brain waves, but I'm taking that frequency 7.83 because once we convert that frequency into geometric harmonics, right, using the proper units, it matches exactly the reciprocal of harmonic 144. I mean, at 99.99% accuracy. It's absolutely stunning. So
crazy.
Planet Earth itself, or brain waves, are tuned to these harmonics of light. And the water itself too, which water essentially is, represents 65% of our body. Water represents 80 or 85% of our brain. The brain is very watery, very mushy. Well, the water itself, when we take the molecular weight of water and we convert that into energy, into geometric harmonics energy, it totally also resonates with these harmonics of creation. So there's nothing left to chance here. That's why these building blocks of creation and what sustains life on Earth is totally connected to these harmonics. And again, once we understand this principle and we tap into this, we can understand more telepathy, the mechanism for it. We can catalyze this mechanism, if you will, develop healing technologies, interstellar communication, tap into the free energy grid that we're sitting on. And that's what Tesla was, attempting to do. We can develop anti-gravity, space travel, and so on. So this is why this is important. When folks ask, okay, why are we even talking about this? Well, that is why, right? This really opens the door to a new perspective on physics and opens the door to a new technology and a new Earth, a new humanity, if you will, once we understand that. Let me show you more evidence of it. This one here is a video, or I have a screenshot on the screen, which shows it's a screenshot of a transmission that I was doing while I was transmitting towards the star Arcturus.
So this is your radio antenna here. You're at the bottom of the radio tower looking straight up. And those are your radio antenna, correct?
That's correct. We see the antennas. There are cameras that are on the back that essentially takes a shot of the sky. And what we see here is a manifestation of a triangular craft. I will call it this way. It could be 3 separate lights only. It's hard to say. I call it the golden ratio triangular craft. And this, and I have the video. We're going to link up on your with this interview, so you can watch the video where I was making the transmission, actually requesting specifically this craft to materialize. And as we see here on the next slide, this craft came on 4 occasions so far. And I have the screenshot of these 4. I have the video, all the video footage as well. But this latest one is the latest one I had on April 23rd, 2022. It's a little bit less than a year ago. And what we see is that this triangle has very special shape. I call it the golden ratio triangular craft because when we looked at it and we do the analysis, we realized that this shape is a very, very special shape. This triangular shape, and for those who can see the slide, you will see what I mean. And let me describe why it's so special. So when we take any side of this triangle, if we take the length of any side, obviously a triangle has three sides. If we take any length or any side of this triangle and we ratio that over another side of the same triangle, we always end up with the golden ratio or the golden ratio squared at very high accuracy. I mean, we're talking about 99 plus 99.9, 99.2% accuracy. So this was initially the first connection. The first one who noticed something about this sighting was my good friend David Cerida. He noticed there was a golden ratio proportion that he looked at, he pointed out, and I started studying more and realized that actually it was not only two sides of that golden ratio, but the entire triangle is golden ratio proportion. As I said, we take any side ratioed over the other side, we get always a golden ratio proportion, which we saw earlier is 1.618, right? This ratio 1.618, which is everywhere in nature.
So, and essentially you have a shorter side and then a side slightly longer. So the shorter top side is 1, and then the other side is 1.6 or 1.618. So that's slightly correct. So it is fitting this golden ratio even by its shape and the way that it is appearing. And with the golden ratio come the other harmonics as well, 144 and 432.
Yeah. I'm going to cover that now. Exactly. So next to ratioing the sides, which was yielding the golden ratio, the thing that I realized later, I just felt I had a gut in me that there was more to this, because these angles, the shape was just very intriguing. So I looked at and I found a good software to do modeling and to model the different triangles. And by fine-tuning, I was trying to fine-tune and find exactly what they were trying to communicate for these sightings. I realized if you look to the left here that the angle of that triangle was 4.32 degrees once after fine-tuning it, which again matches this harmonic 432. I mean, it cannot be an accident. The other side of the triangle, we see here side B or angle B. The angle of here is 6.944 degrees, which happens to be, and I'm just going to show it on the screen, happens to be the inverse or the reciprocal of harmonic 144. Amazing. So I'm going to do it on the screen. I have the calculator. I'll do 144, 1 over x, right? This reciprocal will get 6.94. You see, this is exactly what that angle is here. Yeah. Totally connected to this harmonic again. And just by the way, this number here, 6.944, happens to match, because this number is a geometric harmonic angle, but that number happens to match the frequency of the Schumann resonance and or brainwave, 7.83 hertz. When you convert that frequency into geometric harmonic frequency, you get the number 6.944, which is the reciprocal of harmonic 144. So this alone in itself is also stunning. And finally, that last angle on top here reveals, I'm not going to go for the details, but it reveals also harmonic 432 and golden ratio. So clearly that triangle contains the same ingredients, these building blocks of creations that are all embedded in this amazing structure. And, you know, this also led me to really think, okay, maybe this triangle, this extraterrestrial craft is designed this way because that allows it to travel interdimensionally or instantly from one point of our holographic universe to the other because of these very proportions, because the craft itself is proportioned with these harmonic of creation.
That would explain some of the crafts that people have been seeing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I have more
triangles and delta craft, right?
Yeah. Exactly. I have more on that. You will see in a couple of slides. The other thing I realized also is that if we take essentially a sign here, and we're going to talk about the Planck sphere a little bit here. So we're going to talk about the Planck length and Planck sphere in the next few slides, and let me describe briefly what it is, right? So for those, you know, when we look at quantum physics, when we look at the smallest thing that can exist in our physics, in our universe, the smallest oscillation of energy, right? The length of that oscillation of energy, which we call the Planck length, right, represents really the smallest, tiniest thing that can exist in terms of energy oscillation. This is the quanta, right? We call quantum physics means quanta, and that's based on this pixel of energy, right? This is the building block, the Lego block, if you will, the smallest you can imagine. If you take that length of that oscillation, the Planck length, the smallest length that can exist again in the universe, and you use that length as being the diameter of a sphere, right? It's very simple to comprehend, right? To take that length representing the diameter of a sphere, that the volume of that sphere itself, this volume of energy, if you will, the smallest amount of energy we can quantify based on that will be this number here. We see 347.2. We'll get back in a second here. I found that if we set the side of this golden ratio triangle, one of the side, right, and we set that length as being this Planck sphere volume, 347.2, while the other side of the triangle that we see here matched 560.9, which happens to be the theoretical volume of the universe we live in. So if you go on Wikipedia,
it's amazing.
Okay, and that information is available on Wikipedia. There's a best estimated volume of our universe. It's in meter. It's 5.66 by 10 to the power of 80 cubic meter, a very, very large number, right? But if we take that number, we convert it into geometric harmonics, and the unit to use for geometric harmonics is the nautical miles. If we convert that into a nautical miles volume, if you will, we end up with that number, 561.817. So we see here that even this golden ratio triangular craft, it seems like to be a tool that they gave us, a tool to figure out these harmonics of creation and how things operate. And it was stunning to me that, again, if you take this Planck sphere, that smallest sphere of energy that can exist at the quantum level, and you multiply that by the golden ratio principle, right, the 1.618, we get the volume of the universe, 561.817. This is stunning in itself, and it's also a demonstration that the totality of the universe we live in, the total volume of the universe we live in, is simply a fractal, is a scaled up fractal of the Planck sphere, of the Planck scale, of the quantum
tiniest
scale.
thing in the universe.
Exactly.
And just to clarify, the reason we're talking Planck sphere versus a Planck length, the Planck length is a wave. It's a two-dimensional length. So if you want to use this in application of 3D shapes and universal things, you have to have a 3D shape, and the sphere is that same shape. So effectively, you take the Planck length, you convert it into a ball for this theoretical physics we're doing, but the number is the same. It's the same value, but now you can apply it to 3D calculations.
Exactly. And this was stunning to me that by doing this, we end up with the volume of the universe that's,
a 99.9% match. And I'm looking at your side there, C equals 560. You got 4 decimal places there. If any one of those were out, you're not getting a 99.9% accuracy. Like it could be a fluke once. But as we're going to see later, you've applied this math to so many big calculations that have taken physicists lifetimes to figure out. And it's always almost 100% accurate almost every single time.
Yeah, and there's also obviously a margin of error in our own physics, as we know this estimate of volume of the universe is an estimated value. So, maybe our value we see here is actually 100% accuracy, and what we says in our physics is what's wrong a little bit because they didn't get it right.
The interesting, I like what you've done with the Planck length is that now that physics has gotten, we've gotten smart enough to recognize that there is a unit, there's an international and universal unit that would exist everywhere in the universe, because look at how many units of measurements humans have created. Even now we have inches, we have centimeters, kilometers, miles, a yard and a meter is not exact. The royal cubit, which you'll get into when you talk about Pyramid of Giza. But for the first time ever, we could agree that if there was a unit that we would have in common with perhaps ETs, it would be something on a quantum physics level. The smallest possible form of matter or existence would be that Planck length. So anything coming out of that math would be a universal math that we could all get in theory.
Yeah, beautifully said, Luis. Exactly right. That scale, that quantum scale, has to be the universal scale that we can use for everything. And you said it perfectly well. We're going to get back to it in a second. I'm just showing here a screenshot briefly of a sighting, another sighting I had, personal sightings that I have a video recording of it. And we see here on the left side, there are 2 objects, essentially, 2 light in the sky that we see. They popped up exactly on the same frame. Using my video editing recorder, I will identify that on the same frame. And then immediately on the next frame, the object that was on top started moving towards the object towards the bottom. And once that object reached a certain distance, that object just disappeared just like that, vanished out of nothing. And when we do the math on it, looked at the distance that this object traveled towards object 1, we realize again that's a golden ratio proportion. I mean, just
you got 1 and then you got 1.6. It is the golden ratio.
Yeah, it's stunning. This is another example of sighting, and actually this is recent. I found this on the UFOs in the USA group. There's a lot of folks putting out their pictures of sightings they've had and so on. And this lady here showed a picture of a triangular shape which appeared over the city of Phoenix, Arizona, where the Phoenix Lights actually took place a few years ago. And if you look at this triangular shape, it's you will recognize that there's something very similar to the golden ratio triangular craft that I presented
and this was in January of this year, I believe, correct?
That's correct. January of 2023, very recent. And I did a quick analysis on it. I couldn't keep myself from doing this. And did a quick ratio. And we see here again, these ratio proportions, they are matching the golden ratio at, relatively good accuracy. In this case, not the 99, but we got the 98.1, 95, and 97%. Again, depending on the camera lens and all the distortions, we can get different answers. But clearly, it's very interesting that this sighting, again, taken by totally somebody separate from myself, got something very similar again. So very revealing.
So Jimmy, I just got a quick question here. A lot of people see these three orbs in the sky at a time. They seem to appear in threes quite a bit, or these triangular crafts with three lights on them. Is there a reason, as far as you're concerned, that the figure three keeps popping up?
Well, it's again, these sightings, what I'm seeing, is that these manifestations, first of all, these manifestations typically are very personal to the person that is involved. Of course, if it's over a city, that's a different story. But sometimes it can be, if you look at the video from Linda, she had requested a V shape specifically, and they acted upon it and they executed these different geometric forms. But there was more information, clearly. You see, they embedded even more information that now we're finding out that they were embedding the keys of the universe as well. So it's complex, right? It's I would not say there's one size fits all necessarily, but clearly there is information in these sightings. Next slide here I want to go through briefly is my own analysis of the Great Pyramid of Giza, because I had never done this analysis before myself. And I said, okay, let's look at the Great Pyramid and see if we find the same components or ingredients of creation in there. Again, this harmonic 144, golden ratio 432. And for those who can see the slide, I'm going to describe briefly here. But again, what we see is in the dimension of the pyramid, which you can find on the internet. If you look on the upper left side of the screen here, these values in the metric system, the base of the pyramid is 230.6 meter, the height 146.6, and so on. You will find that on the Wikipedia or on the internet. This is well known. When we looked at it, if you look at from the perspective, now the new perspective we're talking about, if we take the hypotenuse, for instance, 186.6 meter is the hypotenuse of the Great Pyramid. 186.6 happens to be exactly equivalent to 432 squared, harmonic 432 squared. I'm just going to show it on the screen, right? If you take 43.2, again, in harmonic mathematics, we can slide the decimal left or right. And then we multiply that by 4.32. Again, this equivalent 432 squared, we get 186.6. This is exactly the hypotenuse of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Just cannot be an accident. 100%.
Is that not the same number as the speed of light in meters squared?
That is also the speed of light
or in meters per second,
in miles per second. In miles per second. And if you recall, when I showed the tetrahedron that we looked at earlier, let me go back here. You remember that number, 186.624? That is the volume of the inscribed sphere within that tetrahedron, is the hypotenuse of the Great Pyramid of Giza, 186.6. It's absolutely
unbelievable. To how many decimals are we talking here? How many?
But this one is 100% because
it's bang on.
It's bang on. I mean, it's 100%.
99.9% match.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you take
probably 0.999 repeating forever, right?
Yeah. Right. If you take let's look at the slope angle now. The slope angle of the Great Pyramid is 51.84 degrees, right? 51.84. Well, if we look at it again using these harmonics, this happens to match exactly harmonic 432, 43.2 times the square root of harmonic 144. And I'm going to do it on the screen here for those who can have the visual. You take 432, 43.2, and times harmonic 144 square root, you will get 51.84, which is exactly
that's 100% match.
100% match, right? And that's what we see across the board. Now, if we ratio, I'm not going to do all these math now, but if we ratio the hypotenuse of the Great Pyramid over the base, the half base, you get the golden ratio at 99.98% accuracy. You see here, this is on the upper right side. Yeah. If you take the height of the Great Pyramid and you divide by the half base, you get the square root of the golden ratio, which we call the golden root, at 99.95% match. And so this is stunning. When you see this ratio, golden ratio, harmonic 432, harmonic 144, are embedded everywhere in the Great Pyramid. And that obviously is connected to quantum physics. So this is stunning. If you look also at the bottom right side of the slide here, you know, the Great Pyramid itself used to be covered by limestones. It's very well known. It was pristine white polished, you know, casing stones. And it said in the literature that there were 144,000 of these casing stones. Amazing. And finally, if we take the volume, you take this dimension of the Great Pyramid, you calculate the volume of the Great Pyramid, you will get also, I'm sorry, let me just put it back here. You will get at the bottom here, this is that little thing here, 2.598, which is cubic meter, which is 2.61, 2.618 is the golden ratio squared. So the volume of the Great Pyramid itself matches the golden ratio squared. So this is really stunning. So it's embedded in the Great Pyramid. And we see here also on the next slide that the Planck length that we talked about earlier, right, that smallest length oscillation of energy that can exist at the quantum level has a representation also in terms of these harmonics. It happens to equal harmonic 144 times golden ratio squared over harmonic 432 at 99.997% match. Anyone who can do the math, you can go online, find a theoretical value of the Planck length. Typically, it's expressed in meter, which is, by the way, 1.616 meter, 1.616 meter, which is by 10 to the power of negative 35 meters. So this is the golden ratio, by the way, right? 1.616, very close to 1.618 in the metric system. Once we convert that into the nautical mile system, which is the geometric harmonics units we must use to have these figures, we get essentially a match of 99.997%. So this is, you know, this is amazing in terms of math.
And it's so simple. It's not, again, when you look at physics and you look at these people teaching, it's chalkboards and chalkboards long. I mean, you have to be a physicist to even understand it. And you simplified into a formula you could put on a quarter. It's unbelievable.
Exactly. It's very simple. You know, somebody that has a high school you know, math education is sufficient to understand and do this math. It's not complicated. Now, let's show also how quantum physics has been encoded all over the place in physics, in our ancient sacred sites. We'll talk about the Great Pyramid here for a second. I mean, you all know that the measurement system used in the Great Pyramid is the Royal Egyptian cubit, right? And which is the length of 0.5236 meter, right? That's the length that's well known. Well, when we convert that into geometric harmonics, looking at it using the nautical mile systems, the Royal Egyptian cubit is in fact equivalent to the Planck length, and we see here the length of the Planck length, the quantum scale Planck length, times 2 golden ratio. If you do that in terms of harmonics, you get exactly the length of the Royal Egyptian cubit at 99.9% accuracy. This means that the basic measurement system that was used to build the pyramid was based on the Planck length itself. Is a fractal, a scaled up fractal of the Planck length. So take the Planck length times 2 golden ratio, you get the Royal Egyptian cubit. So this is absolutely stunning.
So there was either some understanding of physics at that level, or was communicated that this is an important value, an important number in the universe.
Exactly. And if you look at it also, some other research that I did, if you look in that same picture, if you take a Merkaba, right, these are two tetrahedron kind of embedded within each other, right? Okay. The Merkaba within the cube structure, okay? And if we have essentially the most basic fundamental dimension of that cube being ±1, right? It's a Euclidean cube. Well, if you calculate based on that, the length of the edge of the length of this side of this tetrahedron of the Merkaba, that length happens to match exactly the Royal Egyptian cubit as well. You see here, 2.2828, and the Royal Egyptian cubit is 2827. So there's a 99.96% match. So even at the quantum level, it seems clearly is based, the quantum world itself is based on geometry. It's based on the very basic geometry of the cube and Merkaba. And finally, another piece of example, another example of evidence.
Yeah, I'll just segue that we chatted about this the other day because you were asking about Ryan Graves, and it was the same day we had him on our show. And I said his, you know, it was the cube in a sphere. I said, can you run your math on that? Because this is a verified sighting for military pilots, and many people have said that, yeah, it was specifically a cube encased in a sphere. So here is your recent math on Ryan Graves' sighting, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So what we see on the screen, we see essentially this cube, which has a sphere around it, right? We call it a circumsphere. That's the name we give it for a sphere that envelopes that cube, if you will. And I did some math because obviously this all falls in this geometric harmonic principle. And I discovered amazingly that if we take the length of that cube, right? If you take that cube, the side of that cube having a length equivalent to the Royal Egyptian cubit in terms of harmonic, we end up with a volume of the cube that will match the human DNA energy. So essentially, if we take the volume of that cube and which is 22.598, right? That's what the volume will get if we have the side length equivalent to the Royal Egyptian cubit as being the side length. And if we take the average DNA molecule, so I'm a chemist, so I know the background, so I knew how to calculate the mass of a molecule, a human DNA molecule. You take the mass of that DNA molecule, right? And using basically the E equal MC square, right? E equal MC square from Einstein, you can transform mass into energy or vice versa, right? Using the speed of light harmonic. E equal MC square, energy equal mass times the speed of light squared. Now, in this case, we use the speed of light harmonic 144, okay? But if you do that, you do this math, you end up with an energy equivalent of 22.57, right? And if you compare to the volume of that cube, 22.59, I mean, we have a match of 99.9% again. So this was one aspect. So it could be also that this cube UFO, as we described earlier, you see this the cube, which has a Merkaba in it, this cube may have contained also a Merkaba, which is well known to be a vehicle to travel interdimensionally, right? So there are different aspects to this cube, but I found it very, very interesting that we had this connection between the human DNA and the volume of that cube, and also the circumsphere itself, the volume of that sphere enveloping that cube happens to be the reciprocal of the golden ratio. Exactly. So this is.
So it's like if you use the quantum units and apply that theoretically, everything in the quantum world fits. Like you said, brainwaves, our DNA harmonic, everything. Like it all seems to fit. When you create that as your new ruler, be it the Planck length or the qubit, because they're kind of one and the same, they come from the same math, everything fits when you try to measure it using this theoretical ruler. It's unbelievable.
Exactly. And it's all about really converting the unit system that we're using the miles and kilometers and different units, right? But if we convert these units into geometric harmonics units, using the proper units, then we see this new reality really appearing in front of us, these new connections we can make. And it's almost as if this has always been hidden from us.
Sure.
Here's another example, the Nimitz UFO incident, for instance, right? The Nimitz UFO incident happens to the coast of Catalina Island. So I was intrigued. I've had an entire presentation about the Earth grid, which is also based on these harmonics, by the way. The Earth grid lattice is based on harmonic 144 times golden ratio. So I calculated, one of the point of reference on this Earth grid is the Great Pyramid of Giza. We calculate the distance in nautical miles again, right, between the Great Pyramid of Giza and Catalina Island, the coast where this Nimitz UFO appeared. And what we realized, the distance is 6,525 nautical miles, right, which happens to be equivalent to 46 times harmonic 144 at 99.99% accuracy. Let me show you on the screen. If you take 46, this whole number, right, whole harmonic number, times 46 times harmonic 144, we get, well, I'm sorry, let me do this again. 46 times harmonic 144, we get 6,624.
Pretty damn close. 1 nautical mile different.
Exactly, at 99.99% match. Now, question, is it just an accident that this UFO appeared at that location? Well, I don't think it is. I mean, what are the odds of having this, again, this connection? This is harmonic. I believe
that's
also
a hot spot out there. There's been many sightings there, and they even made a movie. Caroline Corey made a movie out there, and they filmed basically more Tic Tacs at the Catalina Island location.
Exactly. Well, and the reason why is because once we have this is what I call an energy node, right? We have a whole number of harmonic 144 on the Earth grid, 46 whole number times harmonic 144. That location is, could be a portal. It's a vortex of energy. And that may be the reason why this UFO popped up at that a very specific location as well, because at that location, you're really tapping into the energy grid. They can use this as a, maybe energy to travel, but there's something very special. So I think there was clearly a message communicated for this sighting, but also the location may be related to the technology that they use. This is the same thing with the Rendlesham UFO incident that many people will know about. And in that code, the Rendlesham code, without going through this in too much detail, there were coordinates that were communicated telepathically to Jim Penniston, who wrote, these 30 pages of notes of these 1 and 0s. It was in binary codes. Essentially, a large message was given in binary codes, and this message later, 30 years later, was decoded. And what was that message containing was essentially there were a set of 7 coordinates showing 7 locations on the Earth. And my good friend Gary Osborne has done tremendous work on this. I highly recommend his book and his work to look at it. He shows how essentially this coordinate embedded the fine structure constant, at a very, very high degree of accuracy at many, many decimal points. Again, look at the work of Gary Osborne, you will see. But also I did my own analysis of it, and I found correspondence also. If you look at, if you take where this UFO, the Rendlesham UFO landed, right, in the UK as being the center point here, and we calculate the distance between where the UFO landed and these 7 locations that are spread around the world. What we see in the next slide here, and I'll give you an example. So this is, let's take that first location. One of the first coordinates was called Mount Taishan. It's in China. It's a sacred site there. The distance between the UFO landing site in Rendlesham and that location is 4,524 nautical miles. This is a geometric harmonic distance. You ratio that over harmonic 144, we get the mathematical constant pi at 99.998% accuracy. I mean, this cannot be an accident. Right? At that level of accuracy, cannot be an accident. And mind you, the tool I'm using to calculate this distance is not perfect either. I mean, there's a level of error. So to having that kind of accuracy is just stunning. Sedona, I mean, as we know, I don't live very far from Sedona, just a few miles from Sedona here where I'm at. So the distance is very similar. It's 4,529. Ratio that again over harmonic 144, you get the mathematical constant pi again at 99.9% accuracy. And so we see here the 7 locations. I'm not going to all of them in details, but Temple of Apollo reveals, if we ratio that distance over harmonic 432, you get again this mathematical constant pi. It's just stunning. The Great Pyramid, of course, of Giza is a key one. So the distance between the Great Pyramid and the UFO landing site is 8 golden ratio times harmonic 144, which matches also, as you know, the speed of light in miles per second. 186.2882 is the speed of light in miles per second. It is one that you will find interesting. The Nazca plane in Peru, let's talk about this one, 5616, also has an equivalent in terms of harmonic 144, right? You take 39 times harmonic 144. But that number, if you recall, 5616, if we go back here, what we looked at with the golden ratio triangular craft, remember this 5618, 56,
volume of the universe.
This is the volume of the universe. By taking the Planck sphere volume multiplied by the golden ratio, we get the volume of the universe. That number, that's this geometric harmonic number, happens to be the exact distance between the UFO landing site in Rendlesham and the Nazca plane in Peru, which is one of the coordinates that was revealed in the code.
100% match.
It's stunning. And so on. I mean, I'm not going to go everything here, but this is I have many, many slides on this. It's just irrefutable. I mean, the odds of just being an accident are just, not there. And we realize, obviously, that, this is the connection I made here, that everything is connected to these harmonics. Finally, just one last slide on this, the Rendlesham forest here. If you look where the UFO landed in the UK, and we got the Great Pyramid of Giza, which is another coordinate, of course, in the code. And right in between, another coordinate that was revealed in that code was the Temple of Apollo, right, in Greece. And if you look at the distance between the UFO landing and the Temple of Apollo versus Temple of Apollo and Great Pyramid, this ratio also happens to match the golden ratio squared at 99.9%. Again, it's just, giving us all this information again. All this really leads to, and this is the part 2 here, briefly, leads to a set of new physics equation based on these geometric harmonics. So when I started looking into this and connecting the dots, I was able to recreate essentially a set or parallel set of equations that is essentially a new perspective on our physics based on these harmonics alone. And And even to simplify even more, right? When we talk about harmonic 432, 432 is nothing else than harmonic 144 times 3, right? I'm going to do it on the screen. You take harmonic 144 times 3, you get 432, right? Even harmonic 432 can be simplified or reduced to harmonic 144. So really, there are only two ingredients in a holographic universe that we need to really, that we can recreate everything from. It's this, the speed of light harmonic 144, represented by the letter C here, and the golden ratio principle. With these two principles, we can recreate our physics and recreate the reality we live in. I'm not going to go through all these formulas.
But look at the importance of these calculations. The same math can be used to calculate the speed of light, the Planck length, the energy of the universe, the volume of the universe, even general relativity. It's not E equals MC square. It's E equals M divided by 3 times the golden ratio. Like it's almost like, you know, we've all heard that physics breaks down at a certain level, or, you know, Newtonian physics and quantum physics. They both kind of allude to the same things, but neither one is exact. There's got to be a little bit missing out of both. This seems to kind of fill that gap, you know?
You're exactly right. There's always been a contradiction.
99.9% accuracy.
There's always been a disagreement between quantum and classical physics, and this new physics, if you will, this new perspective creates a bridge between and explains everything exactly as you said so well. And I have on that slide also on the up lower right side, you know, the units. For those who are into math, you can follow these rules, very basic. You know, we can use these units to convert from our current system into geometric harmonics, and you will find all these relationships. I mean, we can recreate an entire periodic table literally with this the matter, the physical matter, using these very simple formulas here. And I found also quite interesting, if you look on the, I'm just going to comment on this one, the one on the right side here, the energy of the universe, right? Because if you go again, even on Wikipedia or on these physics books, you can find the estimated mass of the universe, right? Which is 1.5 by 10 to the power of 53 kilograms. We can convert this mass into energy, right, using the relativity equations. And when we do this in terms of geometric harmonics, we realize that the total amount of energy in the universe is equivalent to the one, or the oneness, the totality ratioed over 2 golden ratio principles. So this is what the universe really seems to be boiling down to, really. The oneness, the totality of the universe being fractalized for the golden ratio represents the totality of the energy of our universe. I have other examples here of we're not going to go through this in details, but you know, it shows all the mathematics. I have slides, detailed slide and detailed calculation to show the connection between these harmonics of creation and Schumann resonance, for instance. We talked about it, right? 7.83 hertz, or brain waves, which resonates in the same range. The water molecule, we convert this mass into energy, total harmonic with that. The human DNA, we talked about it. Even the velocity of our stars and galaxies are connected or tuned to the speeds. Harmonics, the flower of life, the energy of the sun itself, the quantum scale, the Earth grid. We talked about the Earth grid with the Nimitz UFO incident. There's connection there to the Earth grid and the Nazca line and so on, and all the platonic solids. It comes down to, you know, from now we can demonstrate mathematically based on this that, you know, the totality of our universe could be explained through this principle, this fundamental harmonic of light 144 that's fractalized through the golden ratio principle, explains everything. And, you know, that connects a little bit to what people can refer as source, creation, or God, or whatever name, you know, we want to put on it, that the totality of our universe has been essentially created out of this spark of energy, this spark of light energy fractalized through the golden ratio. We can demonstrate that mathematically now, how this has been possible. And finally, and this is one of the last slide here, you know, the next step, the next level to this is, and that's the work I'm doing now, and I have a lot that I could present on this. You know, when we combine now these geometric harmonics, this harmonic 144, 432 golden ratio, and we combine that and we charge the platonic solids with this energy, we can demonstrate, we can recreate the totality, really, this seems to be really the mechanism how creation has operated. Like these platonic solids are the crucible of creation, I would say. So when you charge the platonic solid with that energy, we can recreate the universe. If you look in this case, which is stunning, and it's all connected to the Planck world, right? If you take a dodecahedron with a side length equivalent to 2 times the Planck length, right? 2 Planck length.
So dodecahedron being a 12-shaped side, 12-sided shape.
Pentagons. Yeah,
And they've
12
theorized that
pentagons.
our universe is a dodecahedron.
Yes,
and 12 is the root of 144, oddly enough. So
yeah, that's right. And Plato actually said, I mean, it's well known even today that they suspect that the universe is based on a dodecahedron, right? It's clearly stated. And so, but we can now demonstrate it why that is. And Plato always mentioned that the universe had been created in an instant of creation, like in the spark of light energy through a dodecahedron. So we're rediscovering, I think, what was probably known, thousands of years ago, and that knowledge may have been lost or so on. But when we create that dodecahedron with these two Planck lengths, the volume inside the dodecahedron of that sphere happens to match the energy of the universe. That number at 99.95%, right? When I say you take the mass, the estimated mass of the universe, which is shown here, convert that into energy, that energy volume matches essentially exactly that inscribed sphere of the dodecahedron.
So that's proving that it probably is dodecahedron shape, because if our best estimate of the energy of the universe matches, then that is essentially proving what we are believing and what we're finding out in physics and everything else.
Exactly right. And what Plato told us, hundreds of years ago. So this is demonstrated now mathematically. And amazingly enough, what I was also stunned is that when using the same dodecahedron with these two Planck lengths in terms of side length, the total volume of that dodecahedron, now we're not talking about the sphere inside, talking about the total volume of that dodecahedron, happens to match the energy of our star, the sun. Exactly. The mass of our sun is 1.988 by 10 to the power of 30 kilograms. Convert that into energy. That energy feed as a volume matches exactly that. Wow. I mean, it's stunning at 100% accuracy.
That is a crazy math, and the fact that it matches so many different variations, different calculations, that it fits the mold is crazy. And you were talking about the Egyptian qubits. Why have we lost that? Like, why are we not using that form of math anymore? Like you mentioned, maybe it was lost somewhere. Like, is it that we're trying to innovate math? Like, Newton invented, was it calculus or something like that? Because he thought that the math wasn't there to calculate the distance, from the sun to the moon and its gravitational fall into our planet. What happened there? Like, why aren't we using that math anymore? And you seem like you've rediscovered it.
Yeah, I mean, the why that is, I mean, this is the big puzzle, right? Has it been lost or suppressed purposely or so on, right? I mean, in the old days, I mean, the ancients revered the nautical mile system because this was connected to this harmonic. This was revered. This was, the nautical miles, the reason why it's geometric harmonics, because they all, if you take the Earth, right, a circle has 360 degrees, and each degree, has 60 minutes of arc. So that represents a nautical mile. Every minute of arc of that circle represents 1 nautical mile. That's why it's geometric harmonics. That system, that distance system matches geometry, if you will. It's compatible with geometry. I have to mention the work of the pioneer, Bruce Cathy, who was a pioneer in the field, worked books years ago, created the foundation for this in terms of geometric harmonics and the math around it. He made many connections with harmonic 144 as well. And interestingly, he had based his most of his findings because of UFO sightings. He had mapped UFO sightings happening on different locations in New Zealand and his area in the world. And we created a world grid based on that. You see, so even the movement and the location of UFO sightings at the time was connected to this. And Bruce Cathy is a pioneer in the field. And what I'm bringing here forward is, the harmonic 432 and the golden ratio principle, which is key here. That these are the missing elements that were missing here. But now with these elements, we can recreate everything. And it looks like, I have so much material. I have like 700 slides of material, literally, of mathematical calculations and how it connects to things that are, in our surrounding, in our universe, and whether it's water, right, or DNA. I found recently that, for instance, the atom of iron, which is one of the most important atoms, as you know, the Earth itself is sitting on a core of molten iron, which creates, by the dynamic of the molten iron core of the Earth, creates the magnetic field of the Earth, which protect us and which enable life. And iron, the atom of iron, also happens to be the most stable nucleus from a nuclear standpoint, right? When you what's produced in a star, right? The nuclear fusion that's happening in a star, when the nuclear fusion reaches the atom of iron, that's where it stops. That's the most stable element. And I found, and again, when we convert that, that atom and using the geometric harmonics and the platonic solids, it's all connected to this harmonic 144 golden ratio, because when we feed that energy of the atom of iron into a dodecahedron, the sphere inside the dodecahedron, the volume will be exactly 144. And that's why this atom of iron is so stable and so important. So we start now, we're able to connect things that are in our chemistry, in our physics, very concrete stuff, right, to applications, and why that is, why it's so important and why it's stable. Same with the water molecule. It's connected to these harmonics. So again, I have plenty of slides, and we can at some point show more of these connections, but it all boils down to this. And I think clearly the intelligence has been communicating to us the keys of the universe all along through these sightings, through ancient sacred sites that are located around the world, through the location of these ancient sacred sites, and so on, and waiting for us to connect the dots and use this knowledge, this ancient knowledge, and use it for the betterment of humanity.
Yeah, I mean, as smart as we think we are, we have not invented physics or mathematics or science. We just discovered what was already there. The universe has already put these things as rules, right? And we're just playing and learning. And so we can't take too much credit for the previous scientific, discoveries or inventions, so to speak, because there are no such thing. This has already existed since the beginning of time. We're just now getting our minds around understanding it. And I love the fact that your solution is not more chalkboards of equations. It's simplify. And, it's almost like you take somebody with a brilliant mind and you tell them, okay, pick a star that has life on it without any instruments. It's more calculations than a lifetime can conclude. So it's almost like we have so many brilliant people that are looking too hard for these answers. They're simplifying, in your case, has gotten you closer than just making more chalkboards of formulas, so to speak, right? So I like the fact that it's more of a come back down to nature, become more simple, more humble. And, a lot of people that are into physics, it's a very kind of not ego based, but if you've been dedicating your entire life to something or a set of equations, you're going to want to protect that. And you're not going to be so open to other ideas of things that are seemingly very simplistic. So I'm sure there would be some pushback. What do you say to people, to critics that might say, well, if you move numbers around enough, eventually you can make anything fit? What do you say to those type of comments?
Well, I encourage the folks to have an open mind. I mean, I'm a scientist. I mean, I've been taught the same physics and the same chemistry and so on as all the other scientists out there. It's important to take the ego out of the way. It's not about ego. It's about, recognizing the truth and reality. All the material we showed today, and I have, again, 700 slides of this stuff, it's demonstrable mathematically. And as you well said, Luis, if you have one or two things that match together, you can say, well, maybe coincidence, right? If you tweak it enough, you're going to make it work. When we look at that, it's everything in our universe, in nature. Either, again, it's brainwave, matter, it's the water. It's connected to everything, and it's demonstrable. We can demonstrate it mathematically. So it becomes, it's the same if you look at the analysis of the Great Pyramid. You look at the Royal Egyptian Cubit. It's all connected to quantum physics. It's all connected to the same stuff. So at some point, one has to be reasonable and recognize that it just cannot be coincidence anymore.
Yeah. What I got away from, or what I got from this the most, was about the pyramids and how accurate every freaking block had to be.
Slope angle, the hypotenuse,
you know what I mean? Everything. You can even
volume.
be off by like 1/4 of an inch on any block. It would throw the whole calculation off at the end.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's crazy.
You'd still get a result. It just wouldn't be 99.9% accurate. It would be a lesser number that you could be okay with accepting. But I love the fact that anything shy of near perfect is not acceptable, right? It has to match. Otherwise, you're putting square blocks in round holes. So, so I appreciate you keeping that real. I mean, you got 700 slides. I'm sure we could craft together another cool show in the future on, I liked how you took the well-known UFO sightings. Like you had the gimbal video, Rendlesham Forest, Ryan Graves sightings. So it's good to apply this to the field that we are in. And again, a big part of what you're doing in your life is human initiated contact, sending out petitions to have these craft or lights or beings or whatever they are show up. And Your YouTube channel is Human Initiated Contact. There's plenty of videos on there.
I changed the name, and it's connected, by the way, to the Skinwalker Range. I have slides on this too. I mean, the Skinwalker Range, if you look at the location where it is located, calculate the distance again between the Great Pyramid, which is a reference point, and the Skinwalker Range, you get exactly harmonic 144 distance again, exactly at 99.96%, if I recall.
It's almost like there's a net, and every 144 is going to be something, no matter how many times you multiply it, whether it's times 2 or times 200, it's still going to get you to another point. And it makes sense that is based on a quantum unit, and that's why it works.
Exactly,
and everything into it.
Correct, because the Earth itself is a scaled up version of the quantum scale, just like the universe is scaled up the quantum scale. It makes sense that since the basic units are related to these harmonics, then it's, if you these are the multiple of these harmonics, you get all these plays that are special. Sedona is the same thing here, we said. And if you recall also in the Skinwalker Range, you talk about this signal, right? It's 1.6 gigahertz. Right, 1.6 gigahertz, and 1.6 gigahertz. When you convert that into a geometric harmonic frequency, you know what you get? You get 1.44. Right, so this is connected. Essentially, the signal that's emitted at Skinwalker Range, based on my research and what I believe, based on the evidence, there is portal there of energy, because as we said, it's located at a very strategic location on the Earth grid. There's a portal of energy based on this harmonic 144. And when there's activity within that portal, this harmonic will release a frequency in a frequency scale. When we use the proper units, 1.44 is equal to 1.618. It's a golden ratio frequency. 1.6 is the golden ratio frequency, 1.618 in our frequency scale. And in my opinion, that's why they are detecting the signal. So it's connected to all these phenomena, this UFO phenomenon, high strangeness, and so on. There's a connection to these harmonics. I mean, that's what I'm finding now.
So what do you hope happens with your work moving on? Just before we close out here, what would you like to see people take this and run with it? Like, where do you think this is best applicable?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm putting this information out there, for the betterment of humanity. This is not, I'm not selling anything. I'm not patenting anything. This is for the population, for the general public out there to take that information and do their own research. And people have their own field of expertise. They may have their own perspective on this. Take it as far as you can and try it yourself. Try these calculations, and you will see. To me, really, it will lead to a new physics, a new understanding of our universe and reality. We understand that we are made of light energy, that the universe is a holographic universe, is a matrix, a holographic universe. Everything is connected to this singularity. And it's going to, from there, will allow us to tap into the energy grid, develop technologies, free energy, and has really the potential of transforming human civilizations if we use this knowledge wisely.
Jimmy, you're incredible to talk with. You're very intelligent, and I'm not gonna lie to you. There's a lot of parts in this demonstration I'm like, I'm lost. I don't know what I'm looking at, but it's fascinating because the math seems to be something that you can recreate time and time again. And there's a lot of, like I said, everything that you mentioned, the odds are that the calculation would come to that every single time is amazing. And I think you really are, pioneering a new sort of physics in the world of ufology. And we need people like you. We need people that specialize in certain domains to be. I keep mentioning to Louis that we're, ufology. You have general practitioners like doctors, and then you got specialists, right? And a general practitioner has a basic understanding of things, but it has to send you to a specialist to really pinpoint anything. In this field of study is no different than that, but yours is definitely unique for sure. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Jimmy. Louis and I really enjoy talking with you. Hopefully it's not the last time. Let's have you back on again. You got plenty of research and like Louis said, plenty of slides to share with us. So let's make sure we have you back on.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for the opportunity and for the platform. And I'm pleased that the information is getting out there, and we'll keep it going.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take